Good. Well, quick cut off of the music there. Sorry about that, guys. Good morning, everybody. Keith Engle here for TGI Sports Talks one-on-one with Keith Engle. Great to have you with us today. I'll have my guest, Tim Worley, former Georgia Bulldog great, Pittsburgh Steeler, #1 draft pick in 1989, I want to say. And we'll talk about his career. We'll talk about some stuff with, football today, football yesterday, what he's doing with his life today. A lot of stuff with Tim. Want to welcome everybody watching today on TGI Sports Talks, Facebook, YouTube, or X. I'm trying to say X and not Twitter pages. We're YouTube and Roku channel. Don't forget to get that Roku channel downloaded for actually, it's national sports, streaming sports now. They've changed the name of that site. And also we're live on Let's Talk Sports YouTube stream today. So we welcome everybody. Great content on all of those. Quick shout out to Ralph Williams. I know that Tim was on with Ralph and Smoking Jim Frazier on the sports corner over there at WVB. I do this wrong every time. WBVP Radio in Pittsburgh. And Ralph does some great stuff with RW Media. Check him out. Thumbs up DDH. Quick shout out. Next week, our guest will be Buddy Biancalana, former Royals World Series hero. And if you're wondering about this bruise here, you should see the other guy. Now, I had some oral surgery the other day, and it got into the bone, and it did not feel great. So anyway, we're doing better. So we'll get into a lot of stuff today. You guys feel free to add your comments and questions, and if they fit where we're at in the conversation, I'll get them up right away. And afterwards, if not, we'll get to them and have Tim answer those questions. But without further ado, I want to introduce former Georgia Bulldog and #1 draft pick to pick Pittsburgh Steelers in 1989, Tim Worley. Good morning, Tim. How are you?
Morning, Brother Keith. How are you, man?
I am excellent. Things are warming up here in the Northeast. I asked you where you were. You're down there in Atlanta, where it's probably nice and warm, although you don't look that warm this morning. But
well, I like to keep the house cool and put on some long sleeves. It's comfortable.
That's what I like. I need you to talk to my wife. She wants it, 77 degrees all the time, and I want it about 61. So,
well, as I get older, I wear long sleeves, a lot of mesh, a lot of stuff that keeps my joints warm.
Yeah, I hear you. We'll say good morning, Rick Sherlock. I'm glad Rick's the first one, and big Georgia Bulldog fan. Rick Sherlock, one of my old schoolmates, and glad Rick's here with us today. Tim, I appreciate you coming on. And
yes, sir.
It's kind of a precedent with the draft last night. You were an early first round draft pick for the Steelers. Gosh, 25 years ago. Does it feel like 25 years ago?
Actually, 35 years. 35 years ago. It doesn't. It really doesn't. But sometimes when I just sit and I look at everything that's going on now and the drastic change, it feels like it. It really does.
There you go. That's my Perth Central School of Education. I always tell everybody my math skills are horrible. Oh my God. Well, listen, let's chat a little bit about how you got to that point. You grew up in Lumberton, North Carolina. We were just talking about it. A football star. You were a track star there too, as well. Who were your early influences in your life that got you headed down the path of college football and eventually professional football?
Well, one of the things growing up in Lumberton, North Carolina, we really sports was huge. It was a big thing, and you had all three sports. You had football, baseball, basketball. That were the key sports. Track came along and became strong, and even soccer. By the time I was in middle school, junior high, soccer became pretty popular. I played soccer too. So, it's all we had in the community. I was raised in a little town, Lumberton, with no more than 20,000 people. And I think it's kind of still that way. But sports was a big thing. And I found out very quick, probably like maybe first or second grade, that I had a love for any sport, any ball or bat that I picked up. I loved it. And I was pretty decent at it. And but growing up later, as I got older, I started to pay attention to guys like Walter Payton. I paid attention to guys like older guys, that I heard about, Jim Brown. In college, a lot of people think because I went to Georgia that Herschel Walker was the guy that I really paid attention to, but it really wasn't. I was a Kelvin Bryant fan because listen, I'm a Bulldog, but I'm a
LA,
Tar
right?
Heel at heart. I'm a Tar Heel at heart, okay? But I love Kelvin Bryant, Ethan Horton, all those guys, even NC State, Joe McIntosh and Ted Brown and all those guys. So there was a lot of guys that I paid attention to, mainly running backs because that was my position.
Interesting. Did you always know as you were going through those formative years that football would be the direction you took? You said you played a lot of the sports, and did you always know you'd go that way?
Keith, if my story is unbelievable, because and things work out the way they're supposed to.
Yeah,
Now, I was gifted in every sport. I could play every sport at a high level. The only sport that I probably know deep down in my heart that I probably couldn't have took it to the next level as far as professional was probably basketball. Now, I was pretty decent in basketball too, all conference, average 14, 15 points a game for 3 years in high school straight. Six, 2.5, 6'3". I played power forward, had a 40-inch vertical. I was pretty strong, but that was my least liked sport. My best sport, Keith, it wasn't football. It was baseball and track and field.
really.
And yes, and yeah, it's amazing how things worked out. I always tell people, I believe that I was ordained and designed to have a connection to the state of Pennsylvania and the city of Pittsburgh. When I
Interesting.
was 16 years old, Pittsburgh Pirates coach from their farm league came and worked me out at pitching and in the outfield and played a little third and first base. Now, when I was 16, I had a 93 mile per hour fastball. So, and I still have a coach to this day back in my hometown. He's angry at me still. And you're talking about almost 50 years for giving up baseball, man. And so baseball was my sport. Track and field was my sport. I'm excited about the Olympics coming up. I was a sprinter, but football for me was so physical. And I was one of those guys, if I had to be in school, and with that frustration, if I could go out on the field and hit people in the mouth and in the chest and not go to jail for it, then hey man, I'm in.
So, because I'll often see this with guys like yourself who are, multiple sports stars. You never got drafted by an MLB team before you went to Georgia?
No, I actually gave up. I stopped
You
playing
stopped playing,
baseball
right?
at the age of 16. When I
Uh,
went over when I went into my sophomore season of high school, I gave it up. And here's the reason why. I had coaches that was, they coached me well, but football and track and field began to dominate.
yeah.
And so track and field and baseball was pretty much played at the same time. So I couldn't do both of them at the same time if I really wanted to be effective and 100% in both. So I really concentrated on more the seasonal track and field, and that was kind of year round for me.
So as you progress through high school, you obviously end up choosing the University of Georgia, where you had grown up, as you said, a Tar Heel fan and even a bit of a Carolina State fan.
NC State, yep.
Yeah. Why were there? Who were the other schools that were interested in you, or you were interested in going to, besides maybe the Carolina schools, and where you ended up?
Well, as I begin, and I want to tell the young people out there too, because we live in a time now where the kids focus just on one sport, one particular sport, and I mean that's cool, but back in the day, we played every sport. If you got the gift to play it because what it does, it keeps your body in shape. And one of the things I never really got hurt when I was in high school because I went into, when I left football, I went straight into basketball. When I left basketball, I went straight into track and field or baseball. And it kept my body, it worked different parts of your body. And you
Yeah.
don't really get too many injuries, okay? But track and field was the sport that got me noticed nationwide in football. Because here I was always this big kid with a lot of speed. My senior year in high school, I'm 6'2.5", 6'3", 215, and I'm running a 4.2 in the 40. You know what I mean? And so not only was the football skills there, but there were schools coming to watch me sprint and run the 100 meters and the 200 meters at my size. So it really got me noticed. And the schools, outside of the Carolinas, the Clemson, all the ACC schools, the SEC schools, I had a lot of even Pac-10 schools, a couple of Big Ten schools, that recruited me. And it was exciting, man.
What finally drove you to choose Vince Dooley and Georgia at that point in time?
Well, I mean, when you look back in the early '80s, when it came to the typical prototype tailback, it was the big guy, and those guys I looked at. You got to name Eric Dickerson, Herschel Walker, Bo Jackson, even Billy Sims, Marcus Dupree, Earl, all those guys. I looked at those guys, and that was my style, right? Because I was a big guy, and so. I started paying attention to Georgia because of this guy named Herschel Walker. And I started looking, because he came on ABC all the time. I'm
Yeah.
like, who is this dude, man? I mean, this guy's huge and he's fast, right? And I'm like, I love that right there. But at the same time, Kelvin Bryant was my guy. Kelvin was smooth. He wore number 44. My high school jersey number was number 44. So, that kind of got me going in that direction. And but I wanted, as the recruiting got a little more intense and a little more nationwide, um, I decided that I wanted to come out of the ACC. I grew up in the ACC watching that, and I thought the SEC was a little bit stronger, and I wanted to go to the highest level of competition.
I'll put a little modern spin on this question now. With the landscape the way it is now in college sports and NIL money, and we basically have the wild west, right? You think your recruitment would have gone the same, and would you have been a guy that they would have been paying a bunch of money to?
Yeah, they would have had to pay me a bunch of money because I'm telling you, I guess, when you go back and you read all the articles and the things that took place, I was considered a five-star athlete, running
Yeah.
back coming out. Back in 1984, I think they had me. I was the number one tailback in the state of North Carolina. I was the number three or either the number four tailback in the nation. And I think along with guys like Aaron Emanuel and Sammy Smith and Keith Henderson and all those guys, and even had a guy, I was trying to name this guy from out of Aliquippa, Pennsylvania. He was the number one tailback, but he got hurt when he went to Pitt. His name was Brian something. I can't remember it, Keith. But he was the number one. Aaron Emanuel from SC was number two. Sammy Smith was three. I was four. Henderson was five. And there was more guys too, but I can't really remember the names. So
That's interesting. I always wonder with guys, like yourself back in that time or before even, if they, do you sit there and go, man, if only I was coming out today? You got to think about that, right? With the landscape today.
yeah, I mean, I think about it all the time, and it happened the way it was supposed to happen because. And here's my take on it, Keith. Here's my take, and this is more from a personal growth and the things that I went through. And this is the way I think now because I'm almost 58 years old. Okay. But I always put myself in the position of the athlete today. Okay. And I tell people now, amateur sports is no longer amateur sports. Why? Because you're getting compensated for it. Okay. And so I look and I ask the question, what was I thinking when I was 17 years old? Now, Keith, I'm going to be straightforward with you. I'm a godly man and I don't tell lies. So when I was 17, all I had on my mind was pleasure, 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 and selfish, selfish, selfish. Even if I didn't say it, it was all about Tim. So I
Yeah.
want what did I want? I want what I wanted it, how I wanted it, when I wanted it, where I wanted it. So if I was 17 years old and you took $500,000 or $1 million and put it in my bank account, Keith, you know what? Y'all will be visiting my grave today. Think about it.
And that's
Okay.
and again, I wasn't going to go this direction, but do you feel? I mean, obviously, you have to feel that it's dangerous what's happening, putting this
Well,
type of money in young kids' hands today.
yeah, it's dangerous, but at the same time, it was due. Now, and I want the people to hear me. It was due. I think the money that's generated throughout college sports and football being in the lead, you have to do something with it. But um, the gate is open, the gate is flown wide open, and you can't shut it back now. It's too late. But my thing is, I don't have a problem with amateur athletes getting paid, get compensated. I used to always wonder, and you got to thank Brian Bosworth
Yeah,
for acknowledging that back in 1987. He figured, hey man, look at all these people with number 44 wearing my jersey in the stands and chanting my name, and I
yeah,
don't get nothing from it. I can't even get a slice of pizza from an alumni. Okay, so it was due, but it's gotten to a point now where it's becoming dangerous and it's very reckless because, like I said, when you take a couple $1 million and you hand it to a 17 and an 18-year-old, some of these guys are gonna wreck themselves, man. And now it's you got it in a place now where you if you don't feel good about any little thing, you can go to your head coach and say, look at here, man, I want to go. I want to transfer. Why? Because another school is offering me 50 more $1,000 than you are. What are
yeah.
we telling the young people? We're teaching young people, Keith, how to not process loss, pain, and when you run that way, we're teaching them to run from everything in their life, even their families, their marriages, their jobs, if things don't look right or feel right.
That's an excellent point, Tim, and it's a slippery slope around for sure
Yeah.
uh, right now. Getting back to you a little bit, going to Georgia, you played for at the time and maybe still, depending on people's point of view, the greatest coach in Georgia history in Vince Dooley. What was your relationship like with Vince and your time? Let's talk a little bit about your time with Georgia.
Okay. Well, Coach Dooley was my guy. I was real tight with him and had a lot of respect. Probably one of the and I'm gonna name some of the guys that coached me, and unbelievable the leadership that I was under my whole athletic career. But Coach Dooley was that guy. He believed in me. He when I was not living up to what I'm supposed to be doing, whether it was on the field or off the field, he would always let me know and encourage me. And sometimes he had to get very firm with me, but he was an excellent coach, excellent philosopher. He knew how to motivate you, and he was the type of coach, Keith, that you wanted to please, And when he walked up beside you on the sideline, pat you on the back or pat you on the butt or put his hand around you and say, what play you think we should run? And he asked me that, of course, I'm gonna say, give it to me, coach. I'm gonna go over the top. When he did that, I would have jumped to the moon. I jumped to the moon. I would have ran through a brick wall whenever Coach Dooley done things like that. That was the kind of guy and spirit and the impression that he left on me. And so I truly miss him, man. Miss him.
Everybody I've ever talked to speaks very highly of Vince Dooley, as you just did. Do you think, and again, just to kind of bring it to the future again, has Kirby Smart now with a couple of national championships? Vince had one.
Mhm.
Has he surpassed him in the Georgia, uh, the pantheon of greats in Georgia, or is it still Vince Dooley?
Of course, I think anytime now, to me, greatness is over time.
Mhm.
I mean, things can happen fast, and Coach Smart, he's been fortunate and he's done it. I think Coach Smart is an excellent coach, and I think he's on his way to probably be one of the best college collegiate head coaches ever in the history of the sport. Okay. And the thing about Coach Smart is he played the game. He played the game at a high level at the University of Georgia, and like I said, greatness is over time. Coach Dooley spent 25 years at the University of Georgia. He's seen a lot of the ups and downs. He was able to get one national championship, but he's seen Georgia at its worst and he's seen Georgia at its best, and he spent a lot of years kind of mediocre. But he spent a lot of time there, and the thing that kept his career intact was, he was very conservative about stuff. You know what I mean? But he was able to show that strength, that resilience, that beautiful coaching style that he had, and he surrounded himself with great coaches. I see Coach Smart doing the same thing. Coach Smart, what I like about him, he's a defensive minded coach, which wins championships, and he surrounds himself with excellent coaches, and he challenges the athletes that he brings in. If you say you are a five-star athlete, prove it. And
Right.
that's his mentality. If you're not, then hey, you might not like it here at UGA. And I like the bar. I like the standard that he set. It's a very high standard, but those guys, those players that he's got, man, they're up to the challenge because their whole families are involved. That's what it's all about, family.
Great point again. We talk about a lot today, Georgia, Alabama, but the rivalry really through the years has been Georgia, Florida, as we know, the greatest outdoor cocktail party. Uh, Tell us a little bit about that rivalry. I want to talk about that, and I guess as we go through that, tell me a little bit about the evolution of the new Four Horsemen you borrowed a name from the great Notre Dame team from, gosh, I want to say the 40s. Tell us a little bit about that and the rivalry with Georgia.
Well, Keith, I'm gonna go ahead and say we're the original. We're the original.
You're the
I'm just
original
kidding.
first. Okay,
We're the original. I'm just kidding.
that's fair.
But let me get into talking about the Georgia Florida.
Yeah,
One of the things with when I actually committed to Georgia and made a couple of visits, back in the day it was a little bit different. But when I committed and made a decision to come to Georgia, that's one of the first things that people talk to me about. Some of my teammates, fans, and all they talked about was Georgia, Florida, man. You wait to Georgia, Florida, Georgia. I'm like, yeah, 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 yeah. Okay, I gotta see it to believe it, right? And I look, I used to go back and watch some of the games against Georgia, Florida, and how Herschel Walker just would just rip through their defenses and everything. And finally, that day came, Keith, where I'm in the middle of that game, and it didn't start during the game process. It started during the week of practice.
yeah,
I noticed that the the intensity of practice and the hit and the physicality, everything just picked up. And they always said it was like a midseason bowl game, and that game lived up to that point. But when we went down there in 1985, me and a guy named Keith Henderson, we're in the backfield together. We were freshmen, both 18, 19 years old. Florida was ranked number one. We're ranked number 16 or 17. I don't know what it was. Nobody gave us a chance. Okay. But we knew as soon as on the first play, we started hitting Florida in the mouth. We knew that we could play with them. And when we stood our ground, we smacked them in the mouth up and down the field all day long. And me and Henderson, man, we hit Henderson had a field day. He had two long touchdowns for about 150 yards that game. I had a long touchdown with about 100 and maybe 20 yards. And that was the game I think that set the tone for both of us and set the tone. Most Georgia fans, that's what they remember about Tim Worley. Okay, is that long 89-yard touchdown that I ran. And keep, and you know what? Here's the thing. A lot of people, I try to give people inside stuff that they don't know. Do you know when you go back and look at that run on YouTube? When I hit that hole, I kind of went up and I came down, I hit that hole and I took off. My shoe came off my right foot.
oh,
My shoe came off my heel. It's hanging off my, but you got to really look at it. And I'm the whole time trying to run full speed and slide it back on my right heel, right? And so it wasn't until I cut cross field that the shoe went back on, and you could see me hit another gear.
I gotta watch that video again now because I have never noticed that. That's an awesome
Yeah,
story.
you can barely see it. It didn't come all the way off. It's just hanging off my heel, right? And
Yeah,
so, yeah, that was amazing. That was just an amazing time. The Georgia, Florida, all the hype is true, and it lives up to what it's all chalked up to be.
What's your thoughts while we're talking about the rivalry? Because they're talking about moving that to a home and home thing, right, and away from Jacksonville. Do you think that hurts this tradition?
Um, in today's society, I don't think it will hurt it because, um, football is such a big thing in the world and in America. Uh, I would like to see it remain in Jacksonville,
Yeah,
because I found out my brother lives in Jacksonville, Florida. He's been down there for over 30 something years. But I found out there's a lot of Georgia people in the city of Jacksonville. You
yeah,
know what I mean?
yeah.
Yeah. And I think, if you do move it, I mean, you might lose a little bit, but if you do move it to home, say, to Gainesville or Athens, you will take away a little bit of the mid bowl spark. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I would love to see it remain.
As would I. I'm a traditionalist. I
Yeah.
I'm that old guy on his porch yelling at the kids to get off my lawn. It's terrible. I don't like change. And obviously a lot's changed in college football.
Yeah, it has.
And I mean, and that's a good point. Let me take you there for a second. What are your
Okay.
thoughts on the realignment and the just explosion of the SEC into, we're all the way out to Oklahoma now. I mean, do you think this is good for the game, or are you more of a traditionalist and want to see the traditional southeastern teams in this league?
Well, I'm more of a traditionalist, and but at the same time, I'm a pliable when it comes to like pottery. I can make adjustments and add and do this and that. I don't have a stony heart, so I can accept some things. But I got to look at it, because when you look at schools, like when you look at Texas, when you look at Oklahoma now, and to be honest with you, it's the finances are great, and
Right.
we got to say that's first. That comes first. And so, the SEC has been leading, in finances, generating more money than any other conference every year for a while now, and all because of football. But at the same time, the competition level has gotten so great. You know what I mean? And to add uh, this year, Texas, Oklahoma to the SEC. At first, Keith, I didn't. I was like, eh. But now I'm like, yeah, because I want to play against the best competition out there. And
Hmm.
right now, I think as far as Georgia has, and we'll get into this, but Georgia has Texas away, they have Alabama away, and they have Clemson away. And right now, I believe that Texas is going to be that school that's going to give Georgia a hard time this year.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay.
I
Yeah.
agree.
So yeah, I do. I appreciate the competition though.
And the way the games change with realignment and the way the games played, right? I mean, when you came in, the SEC still was as was much of college football, a running game, a running centric game for the most part. Would a Tim Worley fit into today's SEC?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah,
Definitely. My style, I did my style had to, I go back. I'm an old school, big old tailback, fast, drop me 7 yards, get out of the way, give me the
yeah,
ball. But I could make adjustments. I didn't have any problem catching the ball or anything like that. I think today's style would have helped me to develop a little bit more of the gifts that I had, because sometimes depending on the kind of offense or defense that you run, you stay in that area of your power, or what you're good at. You know what I mean? And we were more, and I give you an example, Keith. You know, you see a lot of the running backs today because of the spread offense. You see a lot of running backs, one set, the fullback is eliminated now, which I hate. You
yep,
see a lot of the, standing beside the quarterback. You rarely see quarterbacks under the center anymore. They're all in the shotgun, even on goal line, which drives me nuts. And so there's a lot of positions where times where the guys are just moving, they're dancing in the hole. We were taught, because with the gaps were so tight and we were running, we were taught when you see that hole, you plant that foot and you get downhill. And so now you don't see that much. You see it in guys like Derrick Henry. You see it in guys like Marshawn Lynch when he played. You see it in a couple of guys even now. When they see that crack, they plant that foot and they get downhill.
Yeah.
That's what I like to see. It drives me nuts to see guys dancing in the hole when the hole is there. Plant that foot and get down here. But I do understand why. It's because the way the offense is designed now.
Excellent, excellent point. And guys, my just a reminder, my guest today, Tim Worley, former Georgia Bulldog great and Pittsburgh Steeler running back. We'll talk a little bit about the pro game here in just a second. Any of your comments, guys, we'll leave some time here at the end so that Tim can answer them. I can't get to all of them as we go along without breaking up a little bit of rhythm. So you had an injury in college. I mean, do you feel like, I mean, you had a great senior year, obviously, which led to you being the number 7 pick in the draft, which we'll get into in a second. Without the injury, do you think your college career would have been better? Maybe even, get my Heisman as you progressed?
When I look back now, because I can look back and pay attention to what really mattered back then.
Yeah.
From this standpoint, the way I think now, what I knew, what I didn't know, what I cared about. And I realized back then I really didn't know, Keith, what I had until it was all over. Years after it was over, I realized what I had, and especially the influence over young people or just people in general. And I'll get to that. But I felt like God gifted me enough where if I could have spent, coulda, shoulda, woulda, but if I could have spent 3 years to 4 years, like Herschel Walker, just for instance, getting the ball 30, 40 times a game, I believe that I could have got the Heisman by the time I was a junior.
Yeah.
And when you look at my career, Keith, I only played 2 years at Georgia.
I know.
I played one full season my freshman year. I blew my knee out in the 4th game of the season my sophomore year. And then I came back redshirt junior and played that season. And then I declared myself eligible for the NFL draft. So it was 2 full years and 4 games. And thank God I was able to recover from that knee injury, because it was a bad knee injury and it didn't really cut any of the speed that I had.
Actually, I'll bring this comment up only because it's a little relevant to a couple things we've already talked about. We've found out this week Reggie Bush was going to get his Heisman back because of the rule changes and whatnot that are different than they were 11 years ago or whenever they took it away from him. Maybe it's more than that now. What are your thoughts on that whole situation and it coming back to him?
I think it's due. I think Reggie earned the Heisman Trophy that year. That kid put on a show every game. And, I'm still a traditionalist, though, when it comes to certain things, Keith. You remember there was a time when the Heisman Trophy was handed out when you showed greatness over time.
Yeah.
Okay. Now you can get the Heisman Trophy with just one big season.
Yeah.
Okay. And when you look at guys back in the day, you look at the Herschel Walker, you look at the George Rogers, you look at the Doug Flutie, you look at guys like Bo Jackson. Those guys did it consistently over time. And greatness to me is consistent. There's a flash in the pan and this and that, but greatness to me is over time. But and I'm not taking anything from the kids today, but this is the world and the society we live in today. They want it great right now. If you can't do it right now in a year, you got to go.
That's a great point. That's a great point. And throughout all of society, right? We want immediate gratification.
Every single thing. What's the one restaurant you drive through, you have it your way? Is it Burger King?
Burger King. That's Burger King.
Everybody want it their way, man.
Now they got to sponsor the show now that we brought them up, so we got to get some money here.
There you go.
We'll use this comment here to help us transition into the NFL a little bit. Danny, talking about you missing the 87 season, as we talked about. And what was your biggest adjustment? So you get drafted number 7 by the Steelers in 1989, which now we have determined is 35 years ago, not 25 years ago. What was your biggest adjustment from college to the pros, and going to another iconic coach, if you will, and Chuck Noll in the Steelers? What are your thoughts on that transition?
Well, my biggest adjustment as I look back over the years, from college to pros, the biggest adjustment was more mental preparation. It wasn't physical. Wasn't hadn't to do because I felt like playing in the SEC or just college football itself, the speed of the game, the physicality was all there. It was always there. The SEC was very physical and fast. So nothing really changed there, but the mental preparation, things off the field, film watching, taking care of yourself. Now you're in the NFL. I'm in the league now. Now I'm not in a program. I'm an employee. And how do I make these adjustments? I just bought a brand new house. I'm a bachelor in the city of Pittsburgh. I just signed a multi-million-dollar contract. Pretty girls everywhere. And how do I have self-control? All these things I got to consider, but and all of them wasn't in place because I felt like, I felt like that there were times that I wasn't getting the proper rest and things that I was supposed to be doing, when I was playing in the NFL. But and I made a lot of mistakes, but the difference was, Keith, was definitely mental preparation.
Yeah.
I was the physical guy. I could have played linebacker. I thought I was that physical.
Well, you're big enough to play linebacker at that point in time for sure, probably.
Yeah.
You have a pretty good year your rookie year, and the team goes to the playoffs, I believe, in your rookie year. Lost
Yep.
a playoff game in Denver. What was tell us about Chuck Noll and his influence in that first year, and some of your other teammates that you played with, some interesting guys, and Bubby Brister and
Yeah.
Lewis and a few other guys.
Man, it was, you know what?
Rod Woodson was on that team, right?
Oh my goodness! Listen, if we were by a fireplace and had a couple of hours, man, we could write a book. But
Yeah.
it was an amazing time when I look back, and when I do look back, I try not to say, well, I have regrets, but I don't, because the things that I did wrong, they made me who I am today. So I don't have any regrets. But I look at my mentality back then, and like I said, Keith, I didn't realize what I had. I
Yeah.
didn't realize the influence and what I had in the palm of my hands. All right. And so, number one, Chuck Noll. Well, let me say this first. The Pittsburgh Steelers, and I don't know if you know this, Pittsburgh Steelers have always been my favorite NFL football team.
I saw that interview.
Okay.
Actually, I
Okay.
mentioned that.
Just like
Like,
just
yep.
like the young kid we drafted from Washington last night, his favorite NFL football team. Okay, and I'm the same way. I became a Steeler fan when I was 9 years old. Okay, and back in Lumberton, North Carolina, back then you only had three stations, the main stations: NBC, ABC, CBS. NBC would always carry the Pittsburgh Steelers, and growing up in my neighborhood, everybody was either a Steeler fan, Cowboy fan, or Redskin fan. Okay. And so I chose the Steelers because my mother was crazy about Mean Joe Green. Okay. My dad had something to say about it, but she was crazy about Mean Joe Green.
What was your
And
dad?
so
Who did your dad root for?
my dad just loved football. I don't,
Okay.
I think he loved the fact watching his boys compete, and to me to take it to that next level, he loved it. I'll never forget, man, and we'll get into it, when they saw me play my first game live in Three Rivers Stadium, and I scored my first touchdown against the Minnesota Vikings on my birthday.
On your
It was
birthday,
on
they
my birthday, man.
they
And,
were in the
and I,
stand, they were in the stands that day.
yes,
Oh,
yes. And,
well,
and check this out. My birthday, September 24th. Guess whose birthday, September 24th? Thanks, Mean Joe.
oh, Mean Joe Green,
Mean Joe
nice.
Green. Yeah, man. And so I always thought that was cool. But let me get back to Chuck with Coach Snow. God bless his soul. I thought Chuck Noll, he reminded me a whole lot of the strong traditional football coaches. He was a disciplinary coach. Coach didn't really believe in verbally motivating you. He always said, listen, if you reach this level and I got to motivate you, you don't need to be here. Okay. And I agreed with him, but he was hardcore, very, very soft spoken, but he carried a big stick. And when you did what you're supposed to do, he let you know he was proud of it. But when you messed up, he got all up in your tail, man. And that's one of the things that I love and respect about him. But here's my biggest respect for Coach Snow, because I had a moment, Keith, where I got very frustrated with the Steelers for a minute, and the reason why is because of the type of offense they were running. You know, I'm 6'2.5", almost 6'3". I was 230 pounds. I ran a 4.38 and a 40. Okay, and Georgia lined me up 7 yards deep, gave me the ball, and let me choose whatever I wanted to do.
Yeah.
Pittsburgh brought me in, put me in a 3-point stand, veer set, split back, trapping offense, and I blocked 50% of the time. Okay. And I'm like, what is this? So it made me, what it did later on, I figured it out. It made me slow the game down in my head. And I had to watch where everything was going, especially the trapping linemen, the Terry Longs, the Tunch Ilkins, the Damani Dawsons. Those guys, they had to take certain steps to open up those holes for us, right? But it slowed me down. But in my 22-year-old mind, I'm frustrated. So I had a moment, Keith, where I went to Coach Snow and I asked him, I said, man, why did y'all draft me? I was that frustrated for me to step to Coach Noel like that. And he called me Timmy. And when the only person called me Timmy is my mom. So when he called me Timmy, it just automatically calmed me down. Keith, you know what I mean?
Right.
And I went into kid mode. Yes, sir. Okay. And he said, Timmy, listen. He said, the reason we drafted you, it wasn't because of your running ability. We knew you had that. We drafted you because of how well you could block. I said, what? He said, yes. He said, you block very well. You graded very high in the blocking skill. And so that's why we're here. And we know you can run the ball. So, and that made me, yeah, I accepted that. And that made me like, okay, let me put on my big boy boxers and let's go to work. And I enjoyed blocking for Merle Hodge, man. I really did.
Oh, another great player, Merrill Hodge.
Oh
You
man,
still,
Merle's the best.
yeah. You guys still in touch today?
Yeah, man. I saw Merle. I go back to training camp every year. I've been 2 years in a row, 2022, 2023. I'll probably go back again this year. Um, and me and Merle, man, we saw each other last year, and we communicate. We text each other from time to time, and hopefully the good Lord will have us where we can do a little bit of work together. I'm so proud of Merle, man. He's come a long ways, and
He's,
people
he's
don't know,
health
huh?
health wise, he's doing well. I know he had
Hell,
some health issues.
yeah, Merle's doing great, man. Merle. People forget Merle came over to the Bears with me later on.
Yeah,
And I literally watched Merle take a couple of shots upside the head where he really didn't know where he was. You
yeah,
know what I mean? We were playing in '94 preseason game against the Kansas City Chiefs, right? And we're both with the Bears, and you got 38 and 33 in the backfield again, right? And I threw a block, and Merle got about 10 to 12 yards on a first down, but he got nailed. You know what I mean? I was like, oh, you know. And I woke and I ran up to him to congratulate him, and I saw that long stare in his eyes where he just didn't know where he was. But here's the thing about Merle: he continued to run the plays, and he was
yeah,
knocked out.
yeah.
You know, and that's why I said, the guy asked me one word to describe Merle Hodge back in the day, and I just said tough. The guy was tough as nails, man. And consistent too, very consistent. That's one of my brothers. I love him, Bubby Brister, Greg Lord, all those cats, the White Stone. And those are my guys, man.
So your pro career, your first year is your best year in Pittsburgh. Injuries hit, some off the field stuff. How do you feel about your pro career as you look back on it today? Um,
Um, I have to accept it, but I was totally dissatisfied with my pro career. I felt like I took my foot off the gas after my rookie year. I felt like once I proved myself after my rookie year, I sat back, got complacent, took my foot off the gas. I was a first round pick, so I'm gonna be here. They're not gonna trade me. And so, Keith, I really got into I wasn't focused. I wasn't focused for a lot of years. I got into the nightlife, the partying, and all the self discipline just wasn't there. You know what I mean? And here you are. Here's I'm in my 20s. I got a couple of $1 million in the bank. There's all kinds of everything that I thought I desired and wanted of my flesh. It was there, access at everything at any time. What do you do with that when you don't know who you are? And I tell people all the time, Tim Worley never knew who he was until he was in his 40s, you know?
yeah,
And I'll tell you, man, so that self-discipline wasn't there. So for me to get 67 years in the NFL as a running back was pretty decent considering that I was only focused maybe 2.5 years of that whole career. You know
yeah,
what I mean? Um, I got back focused, when I took that 1 year suspension after failing my third drug test, in '92, and Coach Cowher came in, and I asked the Steelers to trade me because I needed a fresh start. They wasn't planning to trade me; they were going to let me play out my contract and become a free agent. But I'll never forget after the Saints game, in October, September, October, uh, Coach Cowher could see the frustration on me. And he asked me, in that Coach Cowher, moving the jaw and spit, you got to wear a shield when Coach talk to you. He'll spit on you, right? He said, "Hey,
right.
hey, Keith." He said, "Hey, buddy, you're frustrated, aren't you?" I said, "Yeah, Coach." He said, "Well, what can I do for you?" I said, "Coach, we got the trade deadline coming up shortly here in October." I said, "Sir, shop me around and see if there are any team interested in a back of my caliber to come in and play right away." He said, "You got it, buddy." And I tell you, after the Saints game, man, it took 2 weeks. We played Atlanta on a Monday night. We played somebody else. Then we came back and played the Saints in Three River. I'll never forget. I'll never forget this. He came and told me. He said, "There's about 4 or 5 teams interested in you to come in right now and play." It was the Bears, the Packers, the Bucks, and the Arizona Cardinals, and the Cincinnati Bengals. And I started to say, "I'm gonna go to the Bengals." Nah, I didn't. No, I didn't want to do that because Steelers, my boys. But listen, and so after the game, I'll never forget this, Keith. This is crazy, right? And this lets you know this is how business works. We were always off on we go in Monday, we're off on Tuesdays, right? So I'm out, I'm kicking it. I come in late one morning, Tuesday morning, 5 in the morning, sit down on my couch, doze off, wake up. It's about 7:30, 8 o'clock. And I wake up to the news sportscaster in Pittsburgh, and it said it was kind of like a special announcement, right? And it says Pittsburgh Steelers running back Tim Worley has just been traded to the Bears. I said, "Wait a minute!" I said, "Hold on, I didn't mean it."
You got to
you
be
know,
careful what you wish for, right?
Yeah, man, and so I wanted it, but at the same time, when it actually happened, it was like a punch in the. I was like, "Oh my goodness!" I got weak, right? And right after that announcement, like no less than 2 minutes, Coach Cowher, my phone rung. It was Coach Cowher. He said, "Hey, bud, you need to come on over to the stadium." I said, "We got the deal done." I said, "Okay, Coach, I'll be there, right?" So I went in, spent a couple of hours at the stadium getting my stuff together, hugged everybody, shook hands, thanked everybody. And you know what, Keith? That same night, I was on the plane to Chicago at 7 o'clock that night, and returning kicks that Monday night against the Vikings.
You know, to take everything full circle, I mean, we talked about regrets or lack of regrets because I really believe everything that happens to me in my life, and I feel like you're going the same direction, makes you the people that you are now, the person you
Yeah,
are
yeah,
now. So your successes and your failures, for lack of a better term, through your life have brought you where you are. There was an incident, I believe in 2008, that you credit with saving your life, and I'm assuming setting up the rest of your life. So talk to us a little about that and what's
Well,
going on with you right now, and how you're helping give back.
okay. Well, one of the things that, and I'll take you back to how everything began.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Even through all my athletic gifting and all the gifts that God gave me, and I always acknowledge that. But even through all that, I knew that there was something different about me, Keith. I knew, and things happen in the spirit, and I don't want to get too spiritual, but things happen on the show. But things happen in the spirit, and then God allow it to happen in the natural. Um, I've always known since I was a teenager that there was a calling on my life, and that calling is to, uh, preach the gospel. Okay. And I ran from it. I knew it. I was raised, in a church. I come from lots of ministers in the Worley family. My mom's maiden name's Gaddy, the Gaddy family. And my grandfather was a Baptist minister, right? But and when I was a kid, people used to always call me Reverend. And I'm wondering, why are you calling me Reverend? I couldn't stand it. You know what I mean? Stop calling me Reverend, right? And today they call me Reverend Pressure. But I used to be Deacon Do Dirty. No, I'm just kidding. But listen, but listen. And so I had a moment in high school, and I'm gonna get to where we're going. Had a
Sure.
moment in high school where there was an evangelist lady. She said, boy, she come in, boy, she said, Timmy, the Lord's got something special for you. He's got a calling on your life. I'm like, yeah, okay, all right, cool. And then she said, and then later on, she said it to me again, Keith. I was playing with the Steelers. I was about my second or third year with the Steelers. And I'm like, I'm the man, you know what I mean? And she saw me again back in Lumberton. She said, remember what I told you when you were 17? I said, yes, ma'am. She said, God told me to tell you that you're responsible for souls. You know what I said, Keith? I said, no, I ain't. No, I ain't. And so, man, I knew it though deep down. And I always, no matter at my highest point of my athletic career, when it was at its best, high school, college, even the pros, I never felt like I fit in.
Hmm.
I had to, and this is real talk. I never, and still to this day, I had to force myself to fit in. So how did I do that? With my personality. I was the comedian on the team. I was the comedian on the Georgia Bulldog team the whole time I'm there. I was the comedian. Yeah,
Hard to picture that.
huh? I was, man. I told jokes. I could mimic people. I was the comedian on the Steelers. I was the comedian with the Bears. You know what I mean? I told all the jokes. I even had Chuck Noll cracking up sometimes.
Well, that had to be
You know,
difficult.
yeah, man. And because I can imitate people, you know, and so so I always felt like I never fit in, Keith. And I thought it was weird because I didn't know how to talk about it. I thought I was weird. I
Yeah.
said, what's wrong with me? You know what I mean? And so, and then I found out later, some of us we get set apart, not by choice. He chose me. I didn't. It says he loved me before I first loved him. So some of us get set apart. And I'll tell you, this is what happened to me. I'll never forget this, and I told this on the show the other day. 1989 playoffs, wild card playoff against the Houston Oilers, and we'll never forget that, right? Gary Anderson kicks the winning field goal. All right. I scored a touchdown. We played a great game. We're headed to our second round in the playoffs. But the night after we won that wild card game, flew back from Houston. I had a limo waiting on me, Keith, at the Pittsburgh airport, right? Me and a couple of guys, I ain't gonna name no names. We just get in the car, we riding. We're gonna party in Pittsburgh that night. We're gonna listen. The place to be was Chauncey's. You're gonna go to Chauncey's, right? Some of the Pittsburgh people, they know what I'm talking about, right? And so we riding, right? We popping bottles of champagne and whatever, drinking a few Heinekens, and I had a come to Jesus moment, Keith, right in that moment. And I stopped, put the champagne bottle down, and I put my head in my hands, And one of my buddies, one of my teammates said, "Man, what's wrong?" I said, "Nothing." They said, "Whirly Bird, this ain't you. What's wrong? We just wanted to play off." I'm like, "This ain't it, man." I said,
Interesting.
"This ain't it." They say, "What do you mean?" I said, "Is this all this is about, man? You know, popping suds and having fun and chasing women, all the girls and money and jewelry. Is this what this is about, man? Is this what this is all about?" And I knew right then that there was something inside of me that nothing on the outside was going to satisfy. Okay. And guess what it did, Keith? Because I wasn't ready, it made me run harder.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so in my running harder, guess what I did? That's when I started to get in trouble. That's when I got a DUI up in Moon Township. That's when I failed my first drug test. That's when I failed my second drug test. That's when I failed my third drug test without even showing up. So it put me in that 1 year suspension status. And I forfeited a whole salary that year.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so, we're like addiction and all these things. We call it what we want to call it, but it was a spiritual battle. Okay. And I knew that something was different about me, man. I just knew. And so through that whole process, I'm running, Keith. And finally in 2008 in Atlanta, man, I had another come to Jesus moment. I felt like a has been. I felt like, what do you do when the cheering stopped, my brother? And you didn't prepare for life. What do you do? Okay. And I was suicidal. I didn't want to hear it no more. I was a has been. I didn't feel good about myself. So I got up one morning and drunk a case of beer in less than 45 minutes. Drove
Yeah.
to the city of drove to the city of Atlanta. Drunk as all outdoors. Went out, came out of the club that night, the sports bar that night, Keith. And there was two Smyrna police officers about 150 feet from me. They watched me come out. I walked up 50 feet from their cars and I screamed, "Hey, follow me." I get in my car and drive, and less than 2 or 3 minutes later, the blue lights hit me. I said, "Uh-oh, it's on." Okay, that was that demonic spirit talking. I said, "Uh-oh, it's on." I was drinking Jack Daniels that night. That stuff make you crazy. But I said it's on, right? And so he pulled me over, and you go watch the videos on YouTube. You can watch the whole thing. Okay? He pulled me over, and I'm trying to be calm. He starts frustrating me, and I stand there. He went to put the cuffs on me, and I popped him. Pow. Okay? Now today, brother, I would be dead. Okay?
Possibly.
And
Yes.
so when I did that, I looked and saw the fear in his eyes because he was very short. And then he tried to spray me with the mace or the pepper spray. And I turned my back and walked away. And that's when he hit me with that taser. I thought he had shot me with that 40 caliber. But that taser, bro, let me tell you, if you've never been tased, 50,000 volts, you don't want none of that smoke. Listen, I was 250 pounds at the time. That taser hit me and dropped me like a bad habit, kid.
And that,
And man, I had a moment, man, that I stopped running. And that's what needed to happen to Tim Worley, or I was gonna kill myself or kill somebody. And ever since that day, my life has changed. And for the greater, okay, for righteously. Now, have I made mistakes since then? Of course, I'm a human being. But I know who my Lord and Savior is. You know what I mean? And I live a righteous life today, brother. I live a righteous life today, and I try to tell people about Jesus Christ as much as I can.
and
Okay.
then this, don't you spend your time giving back now and from your
That's
experiences to young people and other people, I suppose?
Yes, sir. That's all I do, Keith. I spend my time giving back what God gave me to give, and that's the love that He put in me. And when I tell you, I really didn't know what I had in my hands when I was that superstar athlete. I really didn't, but see now I do. And I'll tell you an instant that happened to me. After I retired from the Bears in '96, I went and sat in the stands at a Bears game. Bears were playing, I don't know, the Giants or somebody, preseason game. I'm sitting in the stands, right? This is in '97. And I'm like, I'm watching the game and I couldn't get through the first quarter. And I just put my head down and couldn't watch it no more. And beginning of the third quarter, I just left because I realized what I had and how I wasted it. And what I realized, Keith, was the influence, the positive influence that I had, God gave me over people, mainly young people. What was I doing with the platform that God gave me? I abused it. I abused it. And it made me so sad. And I cried. I didn't watch football for 3 years. Okay. And so now, today that I'm born again, I realize the influence that I have and the influence in the platform. God's pulled my sports platform forward to glorify his name with it now.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm going to do. That's what I do every day. I use that. It ain't about Tim Worley. I use that platform now, the sports platform, because we worship sports in this world. We worship it. Look at it last night. We worship that.
Yeah.
200 some thousand people, they're worshiping football.
Yeah.
Idolatry at its best, And see, God will take that same platform and he will use that with his soldiers to glorify him. I believe, Keith, now listen to this. I believe that the great revival, next revival worldwide, especially in this country, it's not going to be between the doors of what we call the church. It's going to be from a sports platform because we worship these people. Okay?
Yeah.
And I believe that God is going to use me to be one of the spoken vessels. I believe it. You know why, Keith?
Oh, go
Because
ahead.
I've been to hell and back, bro. I've
Yeah.
been to hell. And the thing about going to hell, I didn't stop. If you're going through hell, don't stop. Just keep going. You know what I mean? And now I got something to say. I'm not afraid of death anymore. I'm not afraid of no man. The only one I fear is the one that can turn my soul, take my soul with him to heaven, or send my soul and my spirit to hell.
It sounds like a very liberating experience for Tim Worley, for sure.
But listen, when I say he woke me up, you know what I mean? He woke me up because I'm gonna tell you, brother, I don't supposed to be here. The way I used to live, Keith, I don't supposed to be here.
Yeah.
I should be dead, man, but I'm still here. I got breath in my body. I'm still here. And as long as I'm here, and let me tell you this, Keith, I wasn't liberated. And I really didn't live. I thought I was living when I was making a ton of money, playing, superstar. But I look back, that wasn't living. That wasn't living for me. When I began to live is when Tim died to Tim. Glory to God. That's when I began to live. When I died to myself and I looked at you, brother, looked at like right now, Keith, I said, how can I help you? When I died to myself, I said, how can I help the children? When I died to myself, how can I help these other athletes, these other people? How can I help the homeless? How can I help addicts and alcoholics? And when I died to me, that's when I started living. Glory to God.
It's obvious you turned your passion from sports and probably multiplied it into what you're doing today, just by the passion you show here talking about it today. It's admirable, sure.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well, he knew he would get the glory out of me. We're not built for glory. And when people that take the credit and the glory and the praise and all that stuff, they end up messing up. You know what I mean? And God is the only one that can handle that kind of glory and praise. Not me.
It's a great.
Go ahead.
It's a great commentary on. I love your commentary on sports and the power that it has, and the people that go through the travails that you have and want to give back. Really impressed me a lot, and I've talked to a lot of people in those positions, and it always impresses me and makes me feel like I need to do more. So it's very impressive what you've done with your life, for sure. And I hope you do continue.
Yes,
And some of the comments like Danny here, I kind of speak to that. Your early life filled with more success and testimony, your leadership blessings, and he loves this interview and he loves the things that you're doing with your life. So
Yeah. I see that. Thank you, brother.
I just want to go through a couple of these comments before we let you go here. I mentioned Sonia Pearson. She's from Robeson County.
All right. Yeah. I saw her. She sent me a Facebook request. Hi,
Okay.
Sonia.
Sonia's got her own podcast too. She'd probably love to have you on, I'm sure. So
Okay.
check
Yeah,
that
I got some things I'm working on. I can't talk about them too much, but some things that the good Lord has got for me, connected me with a few other men of God that played the sport at a high level, man, and we're gonna do what God tells us to do. So
It's very funny. I think when Chris put this up, he was talking more about sports, but it also speaks highly to what you've been talking about since we moved on from sports a little bit. The Benjamin Franklin quote, if you do tomorrow what you did today, you'll get tomorrow what you got today.
exactly.
It speaks to what you talked about in general. Great stuff.
Yeah.
There's probably more stuff here, but I don't want to keep you too long. So
you keep me, man. I ain't got nothing to do for the next hour. What you need? But I tell you, Keith, man, it's we all have a talent. God gave us all a gift, and what we do with it, we're going to be held accountable. And one of the things for a lot of years, and I say this to help young people, I thought for especially a lot of young athletes, but I'm not just putting it toward athletes. I thought that my only gift for so many years was just being an athlete.
yeah,
And that's why I proposed the question, what do you do when the cheering stop and all that's over? Okay. And so you struggle to find your niche. And a lot of times that struggle come in because you're afraid. There's a fear because, when I retired from the Bears and years after that, I just lived off the money that I made, but I had to go get a 9 to 5. That scared me.
yeah.
Because I was in a program ever since I was 10 years old. I was sheltered and in a program because of my athletic gift. Okay. Even when I was at the University of Georgia, I was in a program. And it wasn't until became an employee is when I signed a contract with the Pittsburgh Steelers. And so an employee, they're looking for a return on their investment. But I had the program mentality. And I'll give you an example. My first couple of weeks in Pittsburgh practicing at the stadium, there was a couple of times that I kept thinking, I forgot, Keith, that I bought a house.
Oh, jeez.
Because I was so programmed. And I'm
Yeah.
thinking, okay, after practice, we're all going to go back to the dormitory, the apartments, get in the cafeteria and get something to eat, and I'm like, wait a minute. I got a house. My car's right there. I got to go home. It was that deep.
Amazing stuff. Absolutely amazing stuff. I had something I was going to say, and I can't remember what the heck it was now. Is that through your, what you're doing now in your ministry? Let's say, right? You used that term earlier.
Yeah.
Besides helping young people and others, and again, I'm not looking to name names and sensationalize here, have been former teammates and people that have reached out for help as well?
Of course. There's guys, listen, there's a focus on young people, and I'll answer that question. Let me say this. I say young people because there's a focus on young people, and young people are targeted today. The young people are targeted like never before at the speed of sound today. And when I say targeted, evil is targeting young people like crazy. And see, I got grandkids.
Yeah.
I have grandkids, and the things that people are trying to teach kids that is truth and not truth, I got a problem with that. Okay. And so that's why my focus is more towards young people. My one of the things that I want and that I love, I want young people to know themselves, love themselves, know who they are, okay? And to make wise choices, make good choices in life. Okay? Don't be followers, you know? Don't be a follower. Don't follow people just because. The whole being popular thing is overrated. Be different. And if you want to know who you are, I tell people, kids all the time, if my iPhone has a problem, where do I take it? I take it to the Apple shop. Okay. If I got a problem, I want to know who I am. Who do I go to? I go to the source, the one that created me before he put me together in my mother's womb. Okay. And so he shows me every day who I am. And it wasn't until he showed me who I was and who he was first, and then who I am, that I began to love Tim Worley. I hated Tim Worley for a lot of years. I hated myself. Okay. And that's just real talk. Okay. But one of the things that I do, I try to help not just athletes, man, because I'm a realist. I'm a basic fundamental guy. I was a basic fundamental athlete, and I'm a basic fundamental man in life. Okay. I think people complicate life with too much stuff. It's not that difficult. Once you get to know my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, you'll see that it's just as plain as it is, basic. It's not difficult. Okay. And I help people. I talk to people. Sometimes I cancel people. You know what I mean? And it's not about all this textbook stuff. It's
Mm.
just basic things, that you sit down. And most people, you'll find out, Keith, they just want you to listen to them. They just want you to listen to them. They're not looking, they don't want you to answer questions all the time. They just want you to listen to them, because most people are frustrated and they just want to talk and they need to get it out.
Yeah.
And I realized how frustrated I was after everything, after the tasing incident.
Mm-hmm.
I realized just how frustrated, 30 years of frustration that I had. People trying to control me. It drove me nuts, and I exploded.
Does that something just pops in my head as we talk about that incident again? Does that officer have any idea the influence that the change he helped participate in your life?
Yes, he did, because I went back and thanked him.
God bless you.
I went back to the police station, and I thanked the guy for saving my life. I told him, you saved my life. And God knew what was in me and what was on my mind and my heart that night. And so he put a police officer, I just call it, an angel in a police officer's uniform that saved my life. Okay. And I tell people hey, Keith, I tell people, yeah, buddy, I was zapped by Jesus. You know what I mean? But let me tell you something. It zapped
Literally.
me. It got my attention. And, that was a lot of years ago. And since then, things have, I've grown so much. I've grown so much in the past 4 years, man, 3 or 4 years. I went through a divorce almost 4 years ago, and that helped me grow. And see, what people don't understand, pain is necessary. Okay. And also, enemies are necessary. All right. Jesus wouldn't have made his destiny if Judas hadn't came along. Think about that.
I noticed a point you put up yesterday. I think it was yesterday. A very interesting point about friends and enemies.
Yeah. Enemies are necessary.
Yeah.
They're necessary. Let me tell you this, Keith, and the audience, pick up on this. Listen, your enemies believe in you more than your friends do, than your so-called friends. Because your enemies will move against you in a way because they know what you have and they want it, or they despise it. So your enemies, them acting out, them showing you that they're your enemy, which means that they believe in you more than your friends do. Nobody watch you more, Keith, than the people that hate you.
That's for sure. That is a very true statement. Well, Tim, unfortunately, we could go on for a while, but I do need to wrap it up. And I appreciate you so much and coming on and sharing your story and this tremendous passion that you have today is really uplifting. And I appreciate you coming on and doing that. And
Thank
hopefully
you.
we'll get a chance to do something in the future as well, because this has been a lot of fun for me, and I hope you've enjoyed it as well. And I
Oh
hope,
man,
and I do hope
I
everybody.
enjoyed it. It was beautiful, beautiful. I can continue to talk. If you notice, I got to get the gab.
You
You
do,
know what I
you
mean?
do, and that's good. That's good because it makes my job a lot easier. I can tell you.
My mama used to tell me, "Boy, shut up." Sometimes I said, "Well, Mama, I got it from you."
Uh, Guys,
Yeah.
I want to thank everybody for tuning in today for my interview with Tim, and I hope you've learned something important today that you can pass on to somebody as well. I want to thank Tim for coming in. We'll see you Sunday with the Sunday Stream of Consciousness. Next week on One-on-One with Keith Engle, Buddy Biancalana, former World Series hero with the Kansas City Royals. You guys have a great Friday, and we'll talk soon. Bye-bye.